Let's clear the air. When we hear narcissist, we often picture someone loud, arrogant, maybe even charming. But when you're married to one, it's a whole different reality. It's not just about ego. It's about emotional erosion, slow, silent, and strategic. If you've ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in your own home, this talk is for you. Let's break down how narcissistic husbands really treat their wives, not in theory, but in truth. Let's talk about what emotional manipulations really looks like when it's dressed up as love. Because here's the thing, narcissistic husbands don't usually walk into your life looking like villains. They don't come with warning signs or flashing lights. In fact, they often start by giving you everything you thought you wanted: attention, praise, protection. They seem invested. They seem caring. They seem perfect. But the key word there, seem. In the beginning, it's intense. They love bomb you, constant text, big gestures, compliments that feel like they see right into your soul. You feel chosen, seen, maybe even rescued. And naturally, you open up, you invest, you believe this is the real deal, because who wouldn't want to be loved like that? But what's actually happening is a setup. That early intensity isn't rooted in genuine connection. It's performance. It's bait. Because once you start depending on that emotional high, that's when things shift. Suddenly that love starts to feel different. You notice it's not as freely given. You have to work for it now. You have to say the right thing, act the right way, be the version of yourself that pleases him. And if you step outside of that box, if you push back or even just express a need, what you get is withdrawal, dismissiveness, maybe even anger. This isn't the kind of love that grows. This is the kind that's held over your head like a reward, or worse, a weapon. And that's how emotional manipulation starts to take root, quietly, but powerfully. It tells you that love is something you earn by staying small, agreeable, and accommodating. You'll hear phrases like, "I do everything for you," or "No one else would put up with you like I do." He might say it with a laugh or wrapped in a joke, but the message lands just the same. You start questioning yourself. You wonder if maybe you are too emotional or ungrateful or needy. And while you're sitting there overthinking, he's sitting in control. That's the dangerous part of this kind of manipulation. It's not loud or obvious. It's subtle. So when people from the outside look in, they don't see it. They see a man who brings you flowers, who smiles for the camera, who talks about how much he loves his wife. But you're the one who feels the shift when the door closes. You're the one who knows there's a price for every compliment, a condition behind every kind gesture. And when you try to talk about it, when you bring it up, he flips it. Suddenly you're the problem. You're overanalyzing. You're too sensitive. He tells you he's just trying to help, just trying to love you. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're the one who's broken. Now you're caught in this loop, trying harder, giving more, just to get back to that version of him you met at the beginning, the version who adored you, who said you were everything he ever wanted. But that version doesn't really exist anymore. Maybe he never did. That's the cycle. That's how emotional manipulation works under the mask of love. It's not about connection. It's about control. And the longer you're in it, the harder it is to see it for what it is. Because you're not just dealing with cruelty. You're dealing with confusion. You're grieving a relationship that never quite existed the way you thought it did. And that grief is real. That hope you held on to, that maybe if you just communicated better or loved harder or were a little less reactive, maybe then he'd go back to who he used to be. That's what keeps you stuck. That's what keeps you silent. But let me tell you something. Clearly, love does not require shrinking. It does not demand silence. Real love shows up consistently. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't turn your heart into a negotiation. So if you're in a relationship where affection feels like a prize you have to win back every day, know that what you're experiencing isn't love. It's emotional manipulation. And manipulation wrapped in "I love you" is still manipulation. Gaslighting doesn't always start with shouting. It often starts with a soft tone and a twisted sentence. Something like, "That's not what happened," or "You're remembering it wrong, Bess." And at first you might second guess yourself just a little. You might think, maybe I did misunderstand. Maybe I did overact. But the thing is, this doesn't happen once or twice. It happens over and over until you begin to trust his version of reality more than your own. That's the power of gaslighting. it doesn't just confuse you. It conditions you. You stop bringing things up. You stop challenging what doesn't sit right. Because every time you do, you're met with denial, deflection, or mockery. You're told you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional. So eventually, to survive the relationship, you learn to silence yourself. You trade your voice for temporary peace. And here's where it gets even trickier. He won't always be overt about it. Narcissistic husbands often wear a calm, collected mask while they do it. So when he says, you always make a big deal out of nothing, it sounds like he's trying to help. When he says, you're misinterpreting what I meant, it sounds like a clarification. But every time he says those things, he's shifting the focus off his behavior and onto your reaction. Now, instead of discussing what he said or did, you're defending how you felt about it. You're stuck in the weeds of, was I too harsh? Did I imagine it? Should I have just let it go? And by the time you're finished analyzing your own emotions, the original issue is buried. That's not resolution. That's a psychological manipulation. What makes this so damaging is how invisible it can be from the outside. Other people might think he's charming, reasonable, maybe even emotionally intelligent. They don't see the emotional landmines you're walking through at home. They don't hear the tone he uses behind closed doors or how he says the exact right thing to make you feel crazy, but never anything so obvious that someone else could call him out on it. It's subtle and it's intentional. He'll rewrite history in real time. You'll recall a conversation clearly, words that stuck with you, moments that left you shaken, and he'll flat out deny it. Not just deny the meaning, but deny it ever happened. And when you insist, when you say, no, I remember exactly what you said, he'll accuse you of twisting things, of having a bad memory, or worse, he'll act like you're unstable for even bringing it up. That constant narrative flipping eats away at your confidence. You stop trusting your instincts. You rely on him to tell you what's true, what's real, what's right. And once that shift happens, you're no longer just emotionally vulnerable, you're dependent. And that's the goal. That's why gaslighting is such a common tool for narcissists. Because once you stop trusting yourself, they can shape the story however they want. They get to be the calm one, the rational one, the misunderstood one. And you're just too much. But let's be clear, being emotional isn't a weakness. Reacting to disrespect doesn't make you unstable. Having boundaries doesn't mean you're controlling. These are narratives narcissists use to flip the script and make you question your own worth. And when you try to explain this to someone else, maybe a friend, maybe a therapist, you might struggle to find the words, because gaslighting isn't always what was said. It's how it was said. It's the smirk, the sigh, the slow condescending tone that leaves you feeling small, even when the words themselves seem harmless on paper. You don't walk away from those interactions angry. You walk away confused. And confusion is the sign. That's the feeling gaslighting leaves behind. You won't always feel hurt immediately, but you will feel unsettled. You'll feel like you're losing your grip on something you were sure about. And that's by design. Because if he can keep you doubting, he can keep control. So when your reality starts to feel foggy, when you're always apologizing, but can't even remember what for, when your memory becomes a courtroom and he's always the one winning the case, don't ignore that. That's not a communication problem. That's gaslighting. And the most dangerous lies are the ones that make you doubt your own truth. Don't always notice isolation when it's happening in real time. That's what makes it so effective. It doesn't look like someone locking you in a room. It looks like concern. It sounds like, I just don't think she's good for you anymore, or your family doesn't really support us, do they? And because it starts off sounding like protection, you listen, you trust. At first, he might just raise small doubts. He'll say your best friend talks behind your back, or that she gives you bad advice. Maybe he says your parents are too involved, or that they don't respect your marriage. He'll deliver these comments with a soft tone, maybe even a caring one, like he's just trying to look out for you. And that's how it gets in. Because when someone says they love you, you naturally want to believe that what they're saying is for your good. But over time, the pattern becomes clear. The people who've been part of your support system, your sounding board, your safe space, start to seem unsafe, unreliable or unnecessary. And little by little, you start pulling away. You cancel plans. You stop calling. You don't share as much because now when you do, he questions it. He criticizes. He plants seeds of doubt. So you stop reaching out, not because you want to, but because it's just easier not to. Then you look up one day and realize you're alone. Isolation doesn't always feel like prison. Sometimes it feels like peace because there's less conflict, less tension. But that peace is manufactured. It's not real. It's the quiet that comes from suppression, not safety. Now, here's where it gets deeper. The fewer people you talk to, the fewer mirrors you have reflecting back a healthy version of yourself. And narcissistic husbands want that because when the outside voices are gone, their voice becomes the only one you hear, the only one shaping your sense of self, your worth, your reality. And once they have that control, they don't need to raise their voice to dominate. All they have to do is suggest, hint, correct, and you fall in line. Sometimes isolation looks like being criticized for venting to a friend. He'll say you're being disloyal or airing dirty laundry. But what he's really doing is cutting off your outlet because connection is a threat to control. If someone else can help you make sense of what's happening, you might start seeing it clearly. You might realize you're not the problem. And that's dangerous to someone who needs power to survive. You might hear things like, I'm all you need. Why would you go to them when you have me? And on the surface, those sound like love. But when you look at the pattern, how your world has gotten smaller, how your circle has thinned out, it becomes clear that this isn't love. It's strategic. It's control disguised as closeness. What's even more heartbreaking is how this plays out when things go wrong in the relationship. Because by the time you're really hurting, when you're feeling broken, confused, desperate, you have no one left to talk to. And that's by design. Now, you have to go to him for comfort, clarity, validation, the very person who's been destabilizing you all along. It creates a closed system. You're trapped in a loop where the only relief is the same person who causes the harm. And that makes it incredibly hard to leave or even to imagine a life outside of it. Because he's not just your partner anymore. He's become your whole environment. That kind of isolation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repeated moments where you choose peace over confrontation, where you choose silence over conflict. And it makes sense. You're trying to preserve your relationship, protect your partner, keep things steady. But while you're doing that, your world keeps shrinking. And the cost is your support system, your clarity, your ability to see yourself without someone else's distortion over it. This is why isolation is one of the most dangerous tools a narcissistic husband uses. Because once you're alone, once you've been cut off from the people who love you most, it's easier for him to rewrite your story. And the lonelier you feel, the more likely you are to believe it. Control doesn't always come with chains. It can come with whispers.